What does it feel like to watch your protege fall in one of the most anticipated matches of the year? Juan Carlos Ferrero, coach of Carlos Alcaraz, experienced it firsthand after his player's defeat against Jannik Sinner. But instead of sinking into disappointment, his analysis was deep, balanced, and full of lessons. More than just a defeat, Ferrero saw this match as an opportunity for growth. What did he really say about this showdown? And what does it mean for Alcaraz's future? Let's find out together. After Carlos Alcaraz's loss to Jannik Sinner, Juan Carlos Ferrero didn't hesitate to acknowledge the merit of the opponent. He stated that Sinner played with extremely high consistency, dominated the rhythm of the match, and executed a flawless strategy. From his perspective, the Italian capitalized on every moment of doubt from the Spaniard, forcing him to chase the score. Ferrero emphasized that it wasn't a bad match from Alcaraz, but rather an excellent one by his opponent. This clarity in analyzing the result reflects the maturity of the coach and his team. One of the key points Ferrero mentioned was Carlos's difficulty in imposing his style of play. In this match, unlike others, the Mercian was unable to play with the usual fluidity and aggressiveness that defines him. Sinner managed to pressure him from the very first set, which led Carlos into a defensive dynamic that's not typical of him. Ferrero admitted they failed to adjust the tactics in time and, although they tried to change the pace at key moments, control of the match always remained in the Italians' hands. The mental aspect was also addressed by Ferrero. He acknowledged that Carlos, although mentally strong, is still learning to better manage matches when things don't go as expected. He said that in these types of matches, frustration can work against you, and part of growth is learning to channel that energy positively. For him, this experience will serve as a reminder that at the highest level, the difference between winning and losing is minimal, and every mistake comes at a high cost. Ferrero also spoke about the learning that comes from this loss. He pointed out that matches like this help clearly identify the areas they need to work on in training. It's not just about improving specific shots but about building a more flexible strategy that can adapt to opponents like Sinner, who impose conditions from the baseline. Alcaraz needs to continue evolving in his game reading, and his coach is convinced that these kinds of challenges will make him a more complete player. Despite the result, Ferrero made it clear that there's no reason to be discouraged. Alcaraz remains one of the most dangerous players on the tour, and this defeat doesn't change the fact that he is constantly growing. The coach reminded everyone that all the greats have had difficult moments, and what matters is how you respond to them. Carlos, he said, has the right attitude and the desire to improve, which is essential to staying among the best in the world. Finally, Ferrero wanted to highlight the sportsmanship between the two players. He said that the relationship between Carlos and Sinner is one of mutual respect and that these kinds of healthy rivalries are good for tennis. He acknowledged that losing hurts, but it also inspires. And he assured that, if there's one thing that defines Carlos, it's his ability to come back stronger every time he falls. This match was not the end of anything, but the beginning of a new stage of improvement. In his analysis, Ferrero emphasized that one of the most important factors was Sinner's ability to maintain impressive consistency in his shots. While Carlos made occasional mistakes, the Italian remained solid throughout the match. Ferrero noted that this level of precision can only be reached with a lot of confidence and experience, and that Carlos will need to keep working to achieve that same consistency, especially in high-stakes matches like this one. That stability is what allows a player to dominate, even without taking too many risks. Another aspect Ferrero highlighted was the importance of starting strong. In this match, Carlos began somewhat slowly, allowing Sinner to take control from the beginning. Ferrero explained that in these types of clashes, coming out with intensity is key to avoiding the need to fight from behind. He admitted that their focus in the opening games wasn't ideal and that's something they need to adjust. At the elite level, every point counts, and starting on the right foot can make all the difference in the final outcome. Regarding the tactical approach, Ferrero was honest in saying that they didn't execute the plan as they intended. Although they had a strategy in place to neutralize Sinner's serve and forehand, the execution was ineffective. Carlos couldn't find a way to disrupt the Italians' rhythm, which prevented them from finding openings to inflict damage. Ferrero made it clear that it wasn't a lack of preparation, but rather that Sinner managed to prevent their game plan from unfolding. That ability to impose himself was, according to him, one of the key elements of the match. He was also self-critical of the coaching team. He said that in moments like these, it's essential to evaluate what can be improved from the bench. He admitted that, as a coach, his job is to help Carlos adapt during the match and that perhaps there was a lack of clarity in some of the instructions. Ferrero didn't shy away from responsibility and stated that they also learn from every defeat. That humility to accept mistakes is part of the team's DNA and allows them to grow together after each setback. As for the physical aspect, Ferrero assured that Carlos was fine, with no discomfort. Therefore, the result cannot be attributed to fitness issues. Rather, it was a matter of game and rhythm. Sinner left no space, never let up, and that pushed Carlos to his limits. But FERRERO insisted that these defeats served to strengthen both body and mind. Instead of seeing them as failures, his philosophy is to turn them into fuel for upcoming tournaments. To close his reflection, FERRERO expressed optimism and gratitude. Grateful to the fans for their constant support and optimistic because he knows that Carlos is on the right path. He said that the most important thing is that his player maintains the same enthusiasm, with the desire to learn and improve every day. Defeats, he said, hurt, but they also build. And if there's one thing he's sure of, it's that Carlos will be back. And he'll be back stronger. Carlos Alcaraz's defeat against Jannik Sinner was tough, but also necessary. With the clarity of an experienced coach, Juan Carlos FERRERO understood that this match didn't just mark a result, but a turning point for continued improvement. Recognizing mistakes, valuing the opponent, and looking for new solutions is part of any champion's journey. Far from dramatizing, FERRERO turned this loss into a valuable lesson. Because in tennis, as in life, sometimes you win, and other times you learn. And Carlos, with his mindset and the backing of his team, is more than ready for what's to come. The Nadal family surprises with a statement about Carlos Alcaraz. A relative of Nadal analyzes Alcaraz's performance in the Wimbledon final and delivers an unexpected reflection. The Wimbledon final between Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner left a bittersweet feeling in the Spanish tennis world. Although the Mercian arrived as the favorite, he was unable to overcome the Italian, something he himself admitted after the match. However, what no one expected was that someone so closely linked to Rafa Nadal, his uncle and former coach Toni Nadal, would speak out so bluntly about Alcaraz's performance. In a column published in El País, Toni surprised everyone by offering a technical and emotional analysis of Alcaraz's game. His words, direct and full of nuance, have caused quite a stir. What exactly did Rafa Nadal's uncle say? And why has it made such an impact? The Nadal family breaks its silence with a reflection on Alcaraz's game. Carlos Alcaraz entered the Wimbledon final aiming to reaffirm his dominance on grass. After a flawless run, the battle against Jannik Sinner was not only a challenge but a test of maturity against a rival who has proven to be his greatest obstacle. Meanwhile, the Nadal family has closely followed the young Mercian's evolution. Especially Toni, who for years has served as an authoritative voice in Spanish tennis analysis. But what had previously been cautious praise became, this time, a strong critique. In his article titled "Alcaraz Lacked Variety, Sinner Had Rhythm to Spare," Toni Nadal didn't hold back. From the first line, he distanced himself from the general euphoria usually surrounding Alcaraz and offered a much more critical perspective. "It wasn't the spectacle we're used to from these players," he began. With this, he made it clear that, in his view, the match fell short of expectations. This statement carries weight coming from the man who was the architect of Rafa Nadal's tennis for years. He dropped his intensity a bit, showed a more intermittent and erratic game, and began to lose faith in his chances of winning, he added. The verdict leaves no doubt. For Toni, Alcaraz's downfall was as much mental as tactical. Toni Nadal does not hold back when assessing Carlos Alcaraz's mistakes in the Wimbledon final. Toni Nadal went further and offered an example that, in his opinion, should have served as a model for Alcaraz, the quarterfinal match between Grigor Dimitrov and Jannik Sinner. In that encounter, the Bulgarian dominated clearly for 2 sets until an injury forced him to retire. I think the Mercian should have tried to vary his game more and follow the example of Grigor Dimitrov. In their round of 16 match, he constantly broke the rhythm of his opponent and won the first 2 sets, Toni stated. With these words, he not only established a tactical parallel but also sent a long-term message. To beat Sinner, talent alone is not enough. This type of analysis is unusual in such a respectful environment as Spanish tennis. That it comes from someone so close to Nadal's inner circle makes it a clear signal. More is expected from Alcaraz. Although Toni Nadal never questions Carlos Alcaraz's talent, his analysis is filled with subtle warnings. He talks about intensity, belief, and tactical decisions, elements that, when missing, make all the difference in a final like Wimbledon. And coming from someone who shaped one of the most successful tennis mentalities in history, his words carry weight. Toni Nadal's statements have shaken the tennis world, placing Carlos Alcaraz under the spotlight. The critique, constructive but direct, points to a level of expectation not everyone is prepared to handle. Time will tell whether the Mercian takes note and turns this loss into a stepping stone toward his final breakthrough. Rafa Nadal is asked about Alcaraz's level at Wimbledon, and his response will spark plenty of debate, game, set, and match. Everyone is talking about Mercian tennis player Carlos Alcaraz after the level he has shown in recent months. One of the latest to speak out has been one of his role models and one of the greatest, if not the greatest, legends in Spanish sports, Rafael Nadal. After seeing Alcaraz reach the Wimbledon final, the Manacor native gave an exclusive interview to journalist Blanca Schofield in the Sunday Times. In it, he explained that he would be watching the final from his home in Mallorca. When asked about Alcaraz's level, Nadal responded very candidly, "It won't bother me at all if, at the end of his career, Carlos has done better than me," he said, with a smile. He also spoke openly about what would happen if he were 22 again and could play this Sunday's Wimbledon final against Alcaraz. "I could very well lose because Carlos is an incredible player. And on grass, I think he plays better than I did at his age because he has a better serve and volley than I had," he highlighted. When asked about John McEnroe's statement, that he considers Alcaraz better than the big three, Nadal, Federer, Djokovic, at his age, Nadal replied, "At the end of the day, McEnroe is on TV and has to generate interest in the sport. I think what he said is fine, and I respect it. Whether he's right or not, time will tell." Regarding his relationship with Federer and Djokovic, he denied that they have a WhatsApp group but said that he chats a bit more with Federer, who's in a new stage of his life. "We talk from time to time." Nadal admitted he isn't sad about not being in the stands at Wimbledon this Sunday, because he has gone through a life change. "I'm enjoying the tournament from a different perspective. I hope to return to Wimbledon in the future. Right now, I'm in a different stage of my life," he reiterated.